Okay. Thank you for your attention. Let's take just a moment and check in. How do you feel? What are you thinking? And maybe the underlying text of the feeling and that thought might be what might be the role of on wonder in education. And I would like to open up the floor to any thoughts you might have. So if you'd be so kind to raise your hand, I'm going to go ahead and stop the share so we can see everybody. And you can raise your hand by going down to the reactions, I think it is, and it'll show you how to raise your hand. You can also do this and we'll try to call on you. Yeah, raise a hand looks like this. How do you feel? Oh, we've got two people. Oh, one of them's me. Kitty, you have something. One of them's me and one of them's you, Kitty.
Wouldn't you know it, Tammy, me and you, we're all
I know.
I was really struck by the beauty and diversity of our wonderful planet, and what comes to mind as far as our role in education is children are already awestruck by everything in the world, is to our responsibility to keep that spark a flame of a light, and look at the world through their eyes.
Thank you so much, Kitty. Who else has a thought or a feeling they'd like to share?
Oh,
And
Pamela.
Pamela, yes, thank you. And you'll have to unmute first. Thank you, Pamela.
You can also feel free to put something in the chat if you'd rather not speak it. Tamara, you're unmuted though. Go ahead. Oh, but we're not hearing you.
Her audio's working. Pamela, can you say something? We're seeing if we can hear you. Oh, you're muted again, so you'll have to unmute and try again. Pamela, would you be so kind to put it in the chat, because we really want to hear your thoughts. Thank you. Who else has a thought they'd like to share? Maybe we can, I can read what's coming in. Rita says the miracle of the universe is truly amazing. Thank you. And Pamela, yes, you do have a problem with audio on your computer. Hopefully we can make it work. We are all connected. I think you really hit on the crux here, is that when we talk about in Montessori, the spiritual preparation of the adult, we're talking about this sensibility of all things are connected, interconnected, and interdependent. And this idea is coming through our cosmic task, which we're going to talk about in a moment. Pamela, did you have more you wanted to allow to bring in? Looks like she might be writing. Lorna says, allowing nature to connect is key. We're going to find out more about that in relation to awe as well. Juan says, a quote that came to my mind watching the vid was, we are the sons and daughters, the stars. And we are also the instruments of the universe to follow the child and bring the prepared environment to make him or her express. I want the citation on that one, Juan. I love that. I'm a quote collector, so I want to add that one in as well. Thank you so much. I'm just going to give you another moment, and then we'll jump right back in. Because hopefully I'm intriguing you a little bit about what is awe. Yes, please, Michael, thank you.
Yeah, no, as I saw that, I kept passing between that connection, that nexus between order and chaos. And I found and how inspiring that can be and how we can channel that.
Oh boy, I delve into the world of chaos theory, and you might actually see some more coming up here because we are coming back into order, and chaos is necessary as well for creation, right? Oh, Juan, thank you. I wondered if it was Sagan. I appreciate that. Lindsay says, sacred beauty of diverse forms of life. Thank you. Absolutely. Diversity is, of course, one of the universal tendencies of differentiation. And when we bring in communion, we're going to be talking about social cohesion and how the universe also provides the framework for that as well. And then Cheryl also says we have a full universe to discover every day, things to see and learn. Oh, that's beautiful. That's a great segue for us to go into sharing the screen and moving along here. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Okay, well, like many of you and many Montessori educators around the world, I became enthralled with the idea of humankind is embedded in the potential encapsulated in every child. And Dr. Montessori spent her lifetime revealing the mysteries of the child's potential and that of releasing of what she called their cosmic task or specific contribution to the betterment of all things, a revolution in education. And I'm driven by what I observe as a vital challenge in our profession as educators of how we might deliver the mechanics of what education has to offer without losing the essence of seeding each student's cosmic task. So that cosmic task is a foundational concept identified by Dr. Montessori as a universal design of reciprocity. The idea that everything in the cosmos contributes to the betterment of all things. Other philosophers, theologians, and scientists have coined similar terminology for that same phenomena that lends further validation of Dr. Montessori's observations. And in her 1946 London lecture, she said, "In these times, more than ever before, our hope is that education will offer an aid to better the condition of the world." So today, as my work is primarily with adult learners keen on expanding their great work in Montessori, I'm sharing an exploratory model of research and reflection. So the discoveries I share here are based on what's called a neurophenomenological research approach, in which both the subjective and the objective observations are entwined. And I hope that resonates with you as educators, as the essence of our discoveries of the child rely on a similar approach of objective observations interpreted through a subjective lens. And by listening to the wisdom of universal and human tendencies, I've come to understand the necessity for the regeneration of a new human, adapted to fulfill their potential in actualizing an interconnected and interdependent future. And what I found is that to be steeped in a state of awe is a key to transcendence. And it's woven into the story of the universe as part of the fabric of our evolutionary spirits. In 1949, Dr. Montessori shared, "We find ourselves at a moment in time in which spiritual life is neglected and materialism is extolled as a virtue, in which the physical prowess of human beings has surpassed that of nature, and in which we glimpse the horror of universal destruction. Because of this, we proclaim that the development of creative energies, of the higher characteristics of human beings, is one of the most urgent needs of our social life. And I am more than convinced that expanding our collective cosmic consciousness has practical and innovative potential to solve what ails us and Earth. And I feel a reorientation is necessary as dire global challenges are among the multitude of factors we face, in addition to acquiring fundamental Montessori philosophy and practices. So in this, I envision professional development designed to promote a tendency towards transformation, to amplify guides' adaptability, their responsiveness, their curiosity and humility, driven by expanded states of consciousness. Just imagine the possibilities. So my research into awe uncovered that with the knowledge of how to cultivate our role as lifelong learners, we're better equipped to engage in experiences that advance our consciousness and everyday practices. And this idea has been lurking in me and my very being, yet all the parts came together for me in one idea, that we're inherently part of the cosmos and we have a responsibility to it, that cosmic task. I found that our personal evolution changes the universe. So this understanding forms the foundation for exploring the evolution of a Montessori guide, a vision of each of us who co-create the conditions that expand our consciousness. Dr. Montessori wrote in The Formation of Man, if the whole universe is governed by fixed laws, is it possible that the human mind can be formed haphazardly, that is, without any law at all? Everything in the course of development passes through a complex process of evolution. So I took this idea that we develop based on an evolutionary process outlined by the patterns or laws of the universe, and that it motivated me to better understand how it is we construct ourselves in relation to all that surrounds us. And what better place to start than the good doctor's revelations about development as expressed in her planes of developmental theory. So she fashioned the initial four planes of development through the lens of constructivism, the theory that humans acquire, construct cognition in relation to what they already know. But expanding on Montessori's stages of development in the first 24 years of life, co-founder of TIES and friend of the Montessori family, Dr. Philip Snowgang, shared his supposition of adult development that supports current understanding of andragogy and neuroscience. And he calls it a fifth plane of development in which the birth of our great work or cosmic task is often revealed. And I wondered if I might better understand adult development and the genetic and environmental conditions that characterize a transition from one plane to another. If I took each of these planes and nestled them one into another and to a holonic or a nested structure that highlights the dynamism of development. And it might lend some insight into constructivism. So I propose that our great work follows a similar pattern of construction and consolidation, an ebb and flow throughout our lifespan and characterized by clear transitional periods throughout our lives. So if we can agree that there are identifiable stages of development as children driven by natural tendencies, the key question then becomes what might be driving transitions between planes of adult development? My deep curiosity, of which I have a lot, led me to launch a research project with a willing community committed to both individual and collective growth. And what I discovered is that awe is a catalyst. Sorry, let me back that up. Is a catalyst to lifelong learning. I'm going to say that again. Awe is a catalyst to lifelong learning. And that may not come as a surprise to you. And as educators, I know that you know just how important emotions are to learning. And the science agrees. Affective science, Mary Helen Immordino-Yang writes about the importance of our emotions on learning, including the impact of how we feel on attention and memory, decision-making, and higher cognitive processes. And I believe as educators working with children that have not yet developed regulation of their emotions, it's somewhat obvious that emotions can disrupt cognition. Yet, Immordino-Yang's research is showing that emotions are less about being the bull in the proverbial china shop that breaks the vulnerable crystal of learning, and more about how emotions are the actual shelving or structural foundation on which learning happens. To understand all emotions as foundational for learning seems a worthy endeavor, and when framed as a key to growth, essential for all of us. So this is where the science of awe comes into play. You see, I've learned that I'm adapted to the universe, and in doing so, I am becoming awestruck. I'm using the active verb of becoming, as it reminds me that I am in a constant state of reinvention. As Dacher Keltner and Jonathan Haidt discovered in their seminal 2003 research paper approaching awe, awe is the emotion of transcendence. So in starting this investigation, I had a long list of questions about what is known about awe and wonder. And my first stop in investigating awe was to try and define it. And although much has been written about awe in the context of religion, science, and art appreciation, I found defining it was very tricky. That
I can't do it. You can't even rest around here. I'm minding my own
That's not me.
I got it.
You do have it. Thank you. So the etymology of awe comes from Old Norse, and it describes an experience of terror, especially toward a divine being. It may also be from the ancient Greek akos, which means pain. And the word awful stems from those ancient roots. And the idea that awe is at the nexus of fear and reverence certainly upholds our linguistic legacy, as do some of my favorite words or synonyms for awe, such as awestruck and gobsmacked, blown away, knocked my socks off, and stupefied. But I landed on this simple and more modern definition from psychologist Jonah Paquette. In 2020, he shared in his book, Awestruck, how embracing wonder can make you happier, healthier, and more connected. That awe is the feeling that comes when we are in the presence of something so vast or profound that it transcends our understanding of the world. In Montessori settings, awe is more often than not paired with wonder. Yet wonder is defined as a reflective experience that leads to open questions stated in the form of curiosity rather than conclusions. So as Dr. Keltner and Jonathan Haidt founded this new field of science, the science of awe, they established that prototypical awe-related states are best described as having two stable core features. And the definition I'm using relies on both features of perceived vastness and the need to accommodate a new mental schema or worldview. Those two are the modern definition of awe, a feeling of vastness and this new worldview, the need to accommodate what you already thought you knew. Not all states of awe are experienced in the same way by humans, nor are they triggered by the same stimuli, yet they do have common features and predictable outcomes and conditions. The self-perception that's gained from a new mental schema is said to be a diminished or small self. So that feeling when you're looking at, well, hopefully when you're watching my wee vid, or better yet, standing outside under the starry night and you feel very, very small. That's that sense of vastness, and it helps you feel quite small. And this experience leads to some very desirable outcomes for Montessori guides, including an increase in information seeking, a greater understanding of the nature of science, an increased sense of altruism, and greater social connection. Keltner and Haidt identified 5 key elicitors initially, or these are the triggers that include experiences in nature, beauty, spiritual or religious experiences, a perceived threat or a deference to a powerful person. But since their initial 2003 research on awe, Dr. Keltner has since redefined these elicitors or triggers of awe-related states, and he's calling them wonders that fall into 5 basic realms. And this is where you might see yourself in application of awe, creating the conditions for awe in your community. The first wonder is that of awe in other people, those that are elevated because they are seen as morally beautiful, whether it be through kindness or courage, or maybe overcoming obstacles. And I know many Montessorians tend toward a little bit of hero worship of Dr. Maria Montessori. I would say that's a type of awe that generates transformation in those that study her life and work. Take a moment and just think, who's another person that you might find morally beautiful, that you stand in awe of? So the second wonder is that of nature. Pythagoras named a love of the cosmos as cosmophilia. An American biologist, Edward O. Wilson, described a love of Earth and nature's systems as biophilia. I believe indigenous ecological knowledge and reverence of earth best epitomizes the idea that all living organisms share a vital force. And that's a worldview that Montessorians might well adopt. Nature is the most accessible way to connect with all related states. The third wonder is that of collective effervescence. I love this term. I'm just going to say it again. Collective effervescence is what French philosopher Emile Durkheim called a shared ecstatic feeling, a collective consciousness. Just think of moments in your life when you were with a group experiencing something together and how united you felt. And I'm thinking of experiencing dance or joining a rally, or in our realm, the experience of working together toward changing humankind and how it builds synchronicity. It's often manifest as synchronized heartbeats or hormones and is characterized by shared attention, symbolic objects, and a shared identity. Dr. Keltner shares how study of veterans experienced a 30% drop in PTSD after a half day of navigating river rapids and experiencing awe together. Collective effervescence changes us. It is transformational, and the emotion that's attached to it is awe. So the fourth wonder or elicitor of awe is music. You might have noticed I actually used this one a little bit in our video to hopefully solicit from you that feeling. You only have to immerse yourself in music you love to experience a sense of smallness that changes how you feel and think. The fifth elicitor or wonder is mysticism, of which Keltner suggests is a human tendency to seek a sense of the spirit and the divine. And I wonder if that aligns with Mario Montessori Sr.'s thoughts on orientation in the universe as a human tendency. I have more research to do for sure. So it turns out that perceptual awe, or the direct explicit experiences of awe-related events, are not the only way to experience awe. It may not come as any surprise to you as Montessorians that awe can also be triggered by big ideas, or what is known as conceptual awe. So when we tell the story of the universe to our students, the vastness of the universe and its myriad of interconnected, interdependent, and regenerative tendencies can leave us awestruck. It's why I tell the story to adults. It is that important that we see ourselves as interconnected and interdependent and regenerative with the cosmos, if we are to model all related states for our children as well. So I found that the more experiences I had with that sense of small self, the more I sought it out. I also began to notice a similar emotional response to each of those events that had been described by affective scientists. Those are the scientists that research emotions as being universal in humans. And that means that awe is a biological process. And facial expressions such as a dropped jaw and widened eyes are consistent across cultures. And they have primordial roots in that these expressions convey meaning, and they serve as a function of communication. So I realized that awe is both in the realm of the individual and the collective community, because it turns out that people can be more let me try that one again. People can be more predisposed toward awe, like other emotions. I am more predisposed toward joy, but I'm also predisposed toward awe. And there's a way of measuring it. This is where my scientific little bug just gets so excited. There is something called the Dispositional Positive Emotion Scale, the DPES, and it measures individual tendencies to experience joy, contentment, pride, love, amusement, and awe. And there is an awe awe. And there's some great outcomes. You can measure it because there's an increase in altruism, curiosity, humility, and there's a reduced cytokine anti-inflammatory response. We have a physical response to awe. It's this scale, the DPES subscale, that helped me discover that intentional practices of awe may indeed cultivate a disposition toward awe and reap the benefits. So essentially, the more intentional we are about creating conditions for awe for ourselves and our community, the more disposed we become, and awe comes very easily. I've seen that video that I created maybe 100 times, and yet the hair on my arm still stood up because I'm that predisposed to that feeling, because it's almost like a muscle memory now that I can put myself in that state. So Paquette identified that becoming awestruck is a skill, and through conscious effort, you can evoke more feelings of awe throughout your life. Paquette's work also points to awe-related states as generating social connection, generosity, and curiosity, and calls it the ultimate collective emotion, with collective interest prioritized over individual self-interest. He writes that awe is one of those rare human emotions that turn our focus outward rather than inward, and toward helping those around us rather than worrying about ourselves. So in the study by Keltner and Haidt, the function of perceiving the small self is to develop the tendencies and behaviors that enable humans to create collaborative social groups. And I contend the humility that ensues is a key characteristic of the vitally responsive Montessori practitioner. Humility flourishes when a practitioner has a strong sense of self, yet concedes to the betterment of the whole. This reduced self-salience increases feelings of connectedness. It results in humility and altruism. Humility demands a sense of perspective, of understanding oneself in relation to the universe. It gives you a sense of scale or one's significance. So early constructivist Alfred Adler, contemporaneous with Dr. Montessori, coined this great term, Gemeinschaftgefühl. I'm going to say that one again. Gemeinschaftgefühl. It's a German word that means a kind of altruism that leads to the betterment of the whole. And what I believe Montessori independently identified and applied beyond humans, also known as the cosmic task of all organisms. So according to Adler and his pupil Dreikers, Gemeinschaftsgefühl is a necessary condition for social cohesion, hearkening back to that primordial impetus, and in practice is incredibly useful in Montessori classrooms. So I've covered some of the science behind the pro-social emotion of awe. I've modeled its reflective partner of wonder, and I'd like to suggest that metacognition and intentionality may offer clues about how dispositional awe may be cultivated. That's right. There are easy tools for becoming awestruck. And maybe one of the most profound epiphanies I've learned on this journey is that I now understand that everything in the universe is related and in relation. Adult agency in exercising moments of mindfulness, present moment, non-judgmental awareness has the potential to form the foundation of a more awestruck life. And while a commitment to experiencing these states may be the initial spark, it's a persistent framework of reflective experiences, excited by mindfulness and a feedback loop that produces the stage for dispositional awe. So encoding transformation into our sense of being requires lingering and sitting with awe, as you might on a walk through a forest, absorbing and noting every sensation. It would seem then that cultivating this disposition in Montessori would expand an individual and collective consciousness, creating a greater pool of vitally responsive practitioners better able to optimally serve the child. So stumbling upon the science of awe as a device to understand transformation and the interconnectivity and interdependence of all things, including my evolutionary spirit as part of a quantum universe, has truly shifted my perceptions of self and everything in relation around me. And so I think about how we might leverage this knowledge in our practices. And I think about the conditions, some of which I've shared with you, that might lead to an amplification of awe in your community and an individual disposal or connection toward awe. And what I'd like to do, we have 15 minutes left in our hour. We have 10 minutes? Okay. I think it could be worth it to spend 5 minutes in a breakout, unless it takes 5 minutes to get there.
Well,
What do you think, Kitty?
I think you ought to wrap up.
I'm going to do that, and then I'll open it up to questions instead. I
There
would
you
like
go.
to ponder, what are the conditions that might create awe-related states in your community? How about starting with yourself as part of your own spiritual preparation? We have the science and the spirit here at hand, and they are entwined. Dr. Montessori saw this. This science shows it even better, the behind the scenes. And of course, I'm going to look to one of my favorites, Bill Watterson, for one of our closing pieces. Here's Calvin telling Hobbes, if people sat outside and looked at the stars each night, I bet they'd live a lot differently. Okay. You can find me at Classroom Mechanics. You can also use my name. You can find me. You can also ask Kitty. She knows how to get hold of me any time of the day. We are open for questions. Voila.
I'm going to ask for just a moment before we go to questions to make a couple of announcements, because I know people will start leaving and want to make sure we make these announcements.
Wonderful.
First of all, I want to thank you, Tammy, for inspiring us and inspiring awe. Sarasota University is having an information session on next Thursday, June 29th at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Watch for a email. We have your email since you registered to this, and Ellen will send out a announcement about that. And so we are enrolling for the August term, and would love to have you join us for a master's in Montessori education or a master's in school leadership. Also, if you would like a professional development certificate for spending this wonderful hour with Tammy, Ellen will be emailing out what we call a 3-2-1 reflection form. If you don't have to write whole essays, just you respond with a few reflections and send it back to the email that'll be on the form, and then we'll send you a professional development certificate. And I do want to also mention that we're taking a break for the colloquia and for July and August. We'll restart again in September. And we have another wonderful presenter, Julia Volkman, who will be here to talk about neuroscience and education, and Montessori in particular. And I'm excited about that. And that will be on July 20th. No, excuse me, not July. Erase that. September 20th. And again, you'll receive a notice about that with the Zoom room, because we're moving to a different Zoom room in September. So with that, I'm going to be quiet so you can ask your questions of Tammy. And I bet Tammy will hang out as long as people want to stay and ask questions.
It's true. Thank you so much, Kitty. And thank you, everybody, for sticking with me as I share my passions.
And I just want to mention, we have such a diverse group here all across the US. We have someone from Canada. We have Juan from Cartagena, Colombia, and Mike from is in the UK today. And if I missed anybody else, in an exotic, fabulous place, and the rest of us all across the US. So, well, thanks for coming. What fun.
This was amazing, amazing, Tammy. I just don't want it to end.
Thank
It's
you,
very
Lindsay.
inspiring. And I just thank everyone for being here tonight and challenge everyone to stay in awe and wonder over the next couple of months until we meet again. And Tammy, thank you. It was just filled my cup tonight. So thank you so
glad,
much.
Lindsay.
Very affirming. Thank you.
So please, thank you.
So
This-
any other comments or questions, you can put them in the chat room, or feel free to just unmute and speak up or raise your hand.
I see we have a raised hand with Gabriel Preen.
And
Gabrielle?
Pamela is asking, is there a place where they can access the AWE video, and do you have any published materials?
I am widely published in terms of articles, and yes, I have a lesson plan that has the 5-minute video embedded that I will gift you all. And we need a place to host it though, Kitty. So I can get you the file. We just need a place to host it so that they can pick it up.
Yeah, we can take care of that.
Okay. So follow up with
So
Kitty.
you get it to Ellen, and we'll put it in a Google folder and then share that with everybody.
I'll
I'll
do
send
it.
it out when I send out the video, when I send out this.
That sounds great. I'll get that to you, Ellen, when we're finished here.
And if you have, when you do that, if you have links to any of your articles and you want to share that, and we'll send people all kinds of wonderful, awe-inspiring material from Miss Tammy.
Thank you so much. I'd be happy to. This work's pretty fresh and new, the science of awe. And in relation to education, there isn't much published. However, Dr. Montessori wrote extensively about awe. It's scattered throughout her work. And when seen in light of what we know today about this pro-social emotion, I think about how critical it is that we need to really learn a lot more. So I'm writing.
Well, and Tammy, I mean, I see directly the connection with the cosmic curriculum, and you know, and not just kind of dryly presenting this, but presenting it with, challenge you all to present it with the enthusiasm and joy and excitement that we saw Tammy present. And that if we do that, our children will be on fire with their learning, and then connecting that to everything, everyone in our curriculum. And I see Maha has her hand raised.
Hello, Kitty. How are you? How you doing? Thank you, Tammy. That was lovely. Thank you very much. Fantastic presentation.
Thank you, Maha.
Thank you. That was awesome. I really enjoyed it. Okay, I have a question.
Yes.
How can we, because you have children that come to you, they are very much connected with the Creator. They talk about God. How can we help them make that connection, but in the meantime, you're not offending the other children or the parents that don't want their children to be exposed to that? How can you do that? That's a little bit a tricky one, So what do you think, Tim?
I really appreciate that. First of all, that you're here, Maha. I am a huge fan of yours. You inspire such awe in me. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
This idea that children are very connected to the source, the creator, to soul, to light, to love, to all the ways that we might name the source, whatever that is. I think that we already have the blueprint in Montessori. It is the cosmos. It is our cosmic curriculum. Children talk about God, and I think that listening is one of the best things we can do, and creating lots of experiences that show the interconnectivity of all things. I recently published a course called Making Connections, Building Ecological Consciousness in Young Children. And I had the hubris, just to be clear, to take our 3 to 6 cosmic curriculum in Montessori and run it through a systems thinking lens to show how we are compartmentalizing and siloing concepts instead of showing the interconnectivity of all things. And we can do that in profound ways. Rita's writing in and reminding us about the work of Aileen Wolf. I love Aileen Wolf's work. And I think that when we show, I'm going to give another example. One of the exercises I have children do is to show biodiversity, to show even if you are in an urban school and you have a picture of all of these different butterflies, they're all butterflies, they all have things in common, but they are all very, very unique. And that biodiversity can be applied to all things. It is the healthy approach to all things. So I think about this when I think about children in the source and what are they asking us? Are they asking us to name it? Or are they asking us to show it? To create conditions by which they experience that sensibility. We could probably talk all night on this one alone. Bonnie McFarland wrote the, what is it, Nurturing the Light? No, I'm sorry, I always get this name wrong.
Honoring the light of the child.
Honoring the light
Yes.
of the child.
I know this book. Yeah, I have it.
And this,
And I just want to comment to
yeah.
Tammy, to add on what you said. And I think, you know, when the child brings it up, asking them questions. What do they think? What do they feel? And validating what they've said without saying you believe it too. And you know, how wonderful that you have that feeling, or that you are able to be grateful to God for that. You know, that you're not teaching it, you're acknowledging what that child has said.
Good point. Yeah.
The acknowledgement is huge. There was a question about the article talking about for 3 to 6. It's actually a workshop and you can find it on Trillium. I hope that's okay, Kitty.
Yes, of course it is.
Making connections. And I work for Trillium.
We
too,
have to
so that's
advertise
like
each other. You know, the important thing is for people to get resources.
we're all connected.
Thank you, Tammy, very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maha.
Holly's asking for the name again of the article you wrote about talking about that you were talking about for 3 to 6.
Yeah, and it's actually not the article, it's I'm going to write it in. It's called Making Connections, and it is building ecological consciousness in young children, and you can find it at Trillium Montessori.
And if you're not familiar with Trillium, just Google Trillium Montessori. You're going to find unbelievable resources.
You'll find me.
And many of our other friends.
Many, yeah. I did want to mention, Kitty, the work of Sonny McFarland. She talks about really bringing that language of the source into the light, that we all have this inner light and their love light. And so whatever you call it, you know, to really respond to the child. But I love that.
I'd like to think that most all of us could relate to love, whether you're a person who can use the word God or not, you can relate to love, that we all have, you know, the power of love within us and around us, and can share that.
And I use the word cosmos, and it works for me.
Well, thanks again to everyone for being here this evening. Thank you to Tammy Oesting for sharing such a wonderful, inspirational topic. I am awed and leaving with such a sense of wonder. Thank you, Tammy. You always bring such positive light and love into the room. So thank you again. And I want to just acknowledge Kitty for doing such a phenomenal job facilitating this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing everyone soon. And reach out to Ellen at Sarasota University if you're interested in applying for our master's program, and we do have that informational session next week, June
Yes,
29th.
the 29th at 7. Look for information about that coming soon.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. See you in
Bye-bye.
September.
Thank you.
Good night.
Take care.
You.
Bye.
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 Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Miss Tammy. It was fabulous.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. I'm just taking a look. Looks like lots of people. Okay, they came in from all over.
Yeah, you did. Isn't that exciting?
I love that.
Yeah.
Ah, the
Yeah,
power.
we had 40 people, and if you take away those of us who are kind of had to be here, it's still 38 people or something like, 36 people.
Did we turn off the recording?
We did not.
No,
So-
should we